Hello everyone, my name is James and welcome back to the channel and a video series where I've been trying to rediscover the long lost Warhammer hobby from my past. Back when I was about 13 years old, I used to collect Warhammer 40,000 and Lord of the Rings miniatures, and I kinda stopped the hobby when I picked up guitar. So now I'm in my 30s and I got some, well, a little free time. I just felt like rediscovering the hobby. And yes, it has been a while since my last video. Life kinda got away from me a little for a while. You know, the winter was cold, I had no heating, things happened, and yes, I don't think I'll ever be able to do a once a week schedule with work and everything going on, but I'll do my best to get stuff out because I am genuinely enjoying making these videos. In the last video, I picked my main Warhammer faction, which was Orcs, because they are fun and ridiculous, and they honestly seem like the most good of the guys out of the entire 40k universe. Although with the reintroduction of squats, or Leagues of Votan I think they're called, I'm not really sure what their motivations are and if they're like good or bad. I mean, I assume they're not chaos, so they might be the new good guys, but yeah, I really don't know. Anyways, I built my boys and that is where they stood for a while as life just kind of took over, as I mentioned before. And yeah, they were just another little pile of plastic shame for me for a while. Eventually, I did get some time to work on my boys, at which point I was faced with a tough choice. It's quite simple. What clan do I paint them as? The intention of this video is to not really go into the deep lore of all of the orc clans and how they interact and who hates each other and whatnot, because honestly, like, I don't know myself. But what I can do is give a quick summary. So first, there are the Goths, and these seem to be the default clan that Games Workshop absolutely love and favour. They're like the Ultramarines of the Orcs. They're basically painted black and they love to fight with their fists in close quarters, and you know, they love a good punch up. The Death Skulls have a sort of blue colour scheme because apparently it's a lucky colour, and I think they are considered like looters and scavengers more than anything. Freebooters! Basically they're painted flashy because they're pirates. That's all I could find out. Evil Sons have a red colour scheme because apparently red makes you go faster. And I assume they have go faster stripes as well, I don't know. Bad Moods have a yellow colour scheme and are armed to the teeth. And I mean that quite literally because they apparently grow their teeth really fast, which makes them really rich, which means they can have big fucking mechs. Blood Axes are painted whatever the fuck you like, I think. I couldn't find a colour scheme for them, but apparently they're like really sneaky gits, so purple. And apparently being sneaky means the rest of the clans hate you. You know, not a fair fight or something. Yeah. The Snake Bites seem to be another paint whatever the fuck you like colour scheme because they just follow the old ways, so I assume it's just like a lot of squigs and stuff. No mechs, just pure squigs. If I missed any clans out, I'm sure someone will write down in the comments an essay of which ones I missed or which ones I got wrong, but you know, I'm new to this, so it's a given that I'm going to make mistakes. Do not take what I say as fact. But at this point, I really wasn't sure what scheme to paint my boys. What's the best thing to do in this situation? That is to paint a bunch of test boys. So first I started with the bases, and it's something which I have ignored on most of my previous models because I never really had the materials to make a fancy base. I did have the Astro Granite texture paint from the starter kit that I purchased, but that stuff, like, on its own is really expensive. Like, it's ridiculous. So I picked up a whole tub of Vallejo's earth texture and just look how much you get. Like, here it is. Look at that. Like, this, I think this is maybe twice as much as an Astro Granite pot, and it's fucking, you get so much. You get so much! I layered on the earth texture quite thick, and I added a few cut-offs from the sprue to see if they would work as rocks, and I occasionally added some super glue if it needed some help sticking to the base. I really was just testing at this point, like I had no idea how sticky the texture paint would dry. I gave the squad a prime of black and attempted a Xenophil of white from above, and then they were ready to start painting. First, I tried painting two boys with some vague goth colours just to see how my brushwork was and how they would look, and trying to get down like an order of operations for future reference. Personally, I don't think these two goths look bad or anything, but they're just a bit too... It's just a bit too dull. So what's the opposite colour scheme of dull and just black and not white? Yellow! So with that, so choosing that, it really made the decision for me that my clan will be, or the main clan that I'm going to paint will be the Bad Moons. So I quickly whipped up another test model, and before I move on to the actual painting section where I go through all of my steps, these three boys took me hours to do, like not even joking. It was probably a week or a bit longer of just sitting down for a little bit in the afternoons. Not like really long, I could have finished it in maybe 2 days solid, but like it took so long to do. The Midwinter Mini speed painting tutorial can get a full boy done in like 17 minutes, and I can spend that long on just the base coating step. Maybe it's an experience thing, but personally I think the orc models are quite intricate and complicated. They've got like a lot going on, so whereas you've got the Ultramarines and sort of other factions that have a lot of big flat armor panels, you know, it's like, hey, you paint their armor, you paint their face or helmet, and then you're done. Orcs, you've got the skin, you've got the cloth, you've got the trousers, you've got the boots, you've got the leather, you've got the guns, you've got the armor. There's a lot of things to do. It is really not beginner friendly. So with my test complete, I don't think he looks too bad, and it's time to batch paint the rest. To get my order of operations down, I took some inspiration from another video from Tabletop Ready, which shows how you can get a really clean and tidy look for your orcs. So I really have to give a big thank you to Tabletop Ready for inspiring me for this build or paint order of operations. It's not an exact copy, but heavily inspired. Plus, I really like how it makes them seem not super grimy. Because for me, orcs are like the comedy relief of the 40k universe. They're not, I don't feel like they should be grimy and dark and miserable looking. I feel like they should be a bit more comic poppy. At least that's what it makes sense in my head. So now on to the painting. I split my order of operations into 4 sections: base, shade, highlight, and then the armors. The armor section basically follows the same base, shade and highlight that the other bits do, but I do it separately as like its 4th and final step because it just made sense to me to do the armor last. It was the largest, flattest panels on the model that I could just use it as a final step. So I started my base layers with the skin, giving 2 layers of War flesh to try and get a consistent green. This is really my main enemy right now. No matter how many layers I put on the model and how thin they are, I feel like I can't get it to be a consistent color. I always tend to see brush marks or some of the prime showing through. Even if I add another layer, I feel like it would then be too thick. So it might be an experience thing, or maybe it's just my inexperience and inconsistency in mixing and thinning my paint. But either way, what you can see is the best I can do right now. There was only one model with a tongue, which I coated with Cadian flesh tone before moving on to all the teeths and bones which are on the models. They all got a nice coating of Ushabti bone. The trousers, I tested with a brown leathery style on the Goths and I didn't really like it, so I took the more denim look that a layer of the Fang achieved, and it's also part of the Tabletop Ready tutorial, so I kind of stole it. All of the shirts were painted with Steel Legion drab before giving all of the leather items such as the suspenders or the slacks or just all the leather bits and the belts a coat of Doom Bull brown. The boots I left as Abaddon black before finishing up any hand wraps or other things with Ushabti bone and coating the metallics with lead belcher. With the basing complete, it was time to move on to the quickest part of the entire paint job, and that is shading. Starting with the skin, every guide I could find recommends Bealtan Green, Bealtan? However you pronounce that word. And I can see why, because it really does look fantastic and gives that skin a really deep green shadow in all of the muscle fibers and whatnot. It's just perfect for orc skin. The tongue got a quick shade of Druchii Violet, something I really liked from the Tabletop Ready guide. It adds that organic flesh look, and it also has like a nice colourful contrast that goes well with the yellow. The teeth and bones then got a coating of Skeleton Horde contrast paint, and I really have to say, like, this stuff is great. It really makes like bone colours pop, and there's just no effort to it, like absolutely no effort whatsoever. Just Skeleton Horde, job done. And pretty much the rest of the models got a good coating of my favourite wash, Agrax Earthshade. Moving on to the highlight phase, we go back to the skin again to try and pick out the muscle groups with Warboss Green. And honestly, this is not as easy as it looks. This might need 2 coats, but right now my eyes aren't really sure where to place the highlight layers, and again, I'm hoping to get better with experience, but for now I think I gave it 2 coats of Warboss on where I thought like the muscle groups were. It's difficult to place these, like, trial and error. I think maybe I'll do a better job next time. Once that had dried, I tried further highlights with Snarsnik Green, and it was here like I really noticed I hadn't quite cleaned up all of the mold lines for when I was building my orcs, and it looks kind of naff, so please guys, just don't look too closely. Make sure that all your mold lines are gone. For the love of God, make sure they're gone. Teeth and bones got the same treatment using Ushabti bone to restore the midtone and a smidge of Korax white for the final highlight at the very tips of the teeth. The trousers were a bit of a journey, and I'm not really good at edge highlighting at the moment, especially on like more flatter, clothier surfaces. So I was really unsure how to actually apply this. In the end, I just did a dry brush of Fenrisian grey all over it, and it gave that sort of dry denim look, and it was fine. It looks fine. It's not great, it's fine. The cloth shirts and leather both had an edge highlight of Karak Stone, which was a bit messy, but at this point, like, my focus was really starting to dwindle. I had been painting for a few days at this point, and with each session taking a few hours, it was really leading to just focus problems, and mistakes were happening, and I was having to go back and cover them up, and yeah, mistakes were made. With that, the highlights were complete and the orcs were almost ready themselves, so it was a time to move on to the armor. And this was really easy in comparison to like the rest of the steps, because it's mostly flat panels. Everything I wanted to be yellow, I first gave a quick layer of Korax white, and this will help the weak yellow pigment of the next step really shine through. Now, I don't really have too many yellow paints, but I do have Sun Yellow from the Vallejo set. I think I could also try Avalan Sunset as well, but personally I just wanted to use a dropper bottle because they're just so much better than the pots. Like, I think eventually I will transition entirely to Vallejo pots, or pots, bottles, droppers. They're just better in every way. But for now, I'll use what I use. Once a few layers of yellow had been applied, because the pigment's really thin, it really needed 2 or 3 coats to get a solid colour, I brought it down with a little wash of Seraphim Sepia, and then I finally done the edge highlights with Dawn Yellow. Something I also tried was to give more Dawn Yellow a big splodge in the middle of some armor panels, and then in the middle of that splodge I put on some silver, I think it was Lead Belcher or some of the Runefang Silver, I think, just to show some armor or some panel damage where they've been shot at some point. I think it works out all right. Now, before I moved on to the bases, I finished up a few things that I forgot or missed in the previous step, such as some of the guns and whatnot. I also built the Special Boy, who I left in pieces because his weapon was fucking huge and it was really hard to try and paint behind like a two-handed weapon. You could probably see that other boys that have two-handed weapons where they're covering part of their breastplate or something, like, yeah, don't look too hard there. I could not get my paintbrush in there accurately enough, so I just sort of left a lot of them rough. Don't look too closely. All that was left after this was to paint the bases with a Beastly Brown from Vallejo, shade them down with Agrax Earthshade, and then finish it up with a dry brush of Carrick Stone, and the boys were back in town. Now, I obviously have a long way to go before I can call myself good at painting, and I really have to work on my speed and accuracy because these guys took way too long to paint and I didn't even do a full squad. But all in all, I think they turned out okay. From a distance, they really have a good look, and I really like them. I think they're the best paint job I've done so far. If you do have any pointers on how to paint your boys or how you paint your boys, then I would love to hear from you down in the comments. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, why the hell I'm not being accurate. Tell me how to get a good consistent coat when I'm not using a wet palette. Now, before I leave this video where it is, you might notice that the squad is missing two models from the squad. The first being this guy, who I left primed because my girlfriend said she wanted to try and paint one, so I'm sorry, friend. I don't know what colour you're going to be or how you're going to turn out, but your sacrifice is worth it. And the other model, well, let's just leave that for the next video. Thank you very much for watching.